Good morning, everyone. I call Committee of Supply Section C to order. We're meeting today to continue consideration of the estimates of the Ministry of Agriculture and Food, and I now recognize the Minister to move the vote.
Thank you, and good morning to you, Madam Chair. This is the vote. Resolved that a sum not exceeding $93,246,000 be granted to His Majesty to defray the expenses of the Ministry of Agriculture and Food, Ministry operations to the 31st of March, 2024.
Thank you, Minister. I now recognize the member from Delta South.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome everyone to agriculture. Should be a good day today with some ice cream. At lunchtime, Madam Chair, through you to the Minister, I'd like to go back briefly to carbon tax. And recently, a report out of Saskatchewan has shown us that the Canadian Senate is reviewing a bill C-234 to exempt carbon tax charges on propane and natural gas for barn heating and grain drying. My question through you, Madam Chair, to the Minister, again, we see an 80% rebate at point of sale for greenhouses in the province of BC for the use of propane and natural gas. My question to the Minister, why can't we see the same take place for other types of agriculture that need forms of heating in their barns, such as poultry, grain dryers, and the mushroom industry? Thank you.
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through the chair. We recognize that farmers are faced with rising costs. It's not just gas, or it's feed and fertilizer and a host of other things. And as you know, we've introduced a suite of programs aimed at supporting farmers to be more efficient and to reduce costs. And on the issue of taxation, the member knows that tax policy is the responsibility of the Ministry of Finance. So it's recommended that you actually have a session through estimates with the minister. And just wanted to follow up. Yesterday, we promised we'd get you a membership list of the Deputy Minister's Advisory Committee. We gave out the general sectors that were involved. But I'd like to actually share the list with you today, if I could, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Member.
Thank you to the Minister for that. Madam Chair, moving on, I'd like to, before I turn over to my colleague from Sea to Sky, I'd like to discuss briefly minimum wage increase and employers' health tax. Most farmers aren't known to pay for MSP premiums, so this will largely hit them as a new tax. Is there any money in the agricultural budget specifically designated to offset the impact this will have on farmers? And to further my question, Madam Chair, an example of EHT hitting not only the farming community but agricultural businesses in general. So for instance, BC Fresh is a major distributor of our vegetables in my riding of Delta. And they told me the other day at a meeting I had that prior to the EHT, their annual payment for employees MSP was around $16,000. Madam Chair, it is now at around $68,000 because of the change from MSP payments they were making to the employer health tax. So there's an example of how it's hurting not only farmers but agricultural businesses as well. Just this morning, Madam Chair, I spoke to a large greenhouse operator in my riding as well in Delta to speak about the increase to minimum wage. And when you think of a farmer that maybe a small-scale farmer, dairy farmer, maybe has 2 or 3 employees, not such a big deal to see minimum wage go up by $2 or $3 over a period of five years. But if you're a greenhouse operator that has 125 employees show up each day, each being increased by $2 or $3 or $1.50 each time, at the end of the year that adds up to thousands and thousands of dollars. So my question about EHT and the increase to minimum wage, other provinces, as he indicated to me this morning, other provinces in this country have made or introduced incentives to help farmers to offset the increase to minimum wage. So that is my question through you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through the chair. In the member's question, he's raised another example of input costs. And we understand the cost of production has increased substantially for the agricultural sector. Again, this is why we've introduced a comprehensive suite of programs with a historic $200 million attached to that. And to the member's comparison, I'm not aware of any province or territory providing that level of one-time support, and I'm referring to the programs that I just mentioned, to the agricultural sector. And we're quite proud of that. And we heard from many associations, in fact, at breakfast this morning with the dairy group that's here, that they're very supportive of these and excited about these new programs. Thank you.
Recognizing the member from West Vancouver, Sea to Sky.
Thank you, Chair. And to follow up on my colleagues' questions around input costs and specifically with regard to employers' health tax, I'm sure the minister is aware that there's about 8,000 seasonal agricultural workers in the SOP program in British Columbia on an annual basis. And the minister should also be aware that those SOP workers are not eligible for medical services plan benefits, so that they can't receive MSP benefits. Yet agricultural employers, farmers, when the EHT is calculated on their premium, the calculation includes those seasonal agricultural workers who are not eligible. Does the minister feel that that's a reasonable approach?
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through the chair, I appreciate the member's question, but they actually belong to the Ministry of Finance. And so I think that you should take that question up with my colleague, the Minister of Finance.
Member.
Well, thank you, Chair. And we certainly, I'm sure, will take that opportunity, but that wasn't the question. It was whether the minister felt that this approach was reasonable, and is she advocating for a change in that policy?
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through the chair, I appreciate the question. Of course, my ministry works with the Finance Ministry and others to advocate for the interests of the agricultural sector. But again, the questions on tax policy are not mine to answer.
Member.
Thank you, Chair. And thanks to the Minister for that answer. I suspect that that's what we expected would be the answer. But it is, the member or the Minister has mentioned input costs on a number of occasions, and this is a particularly egregious one because it's an increasing input cost with zero benefit. Like, it's almost punitive in some respects. I don't think that farmers would mind paying, well, obviously they want to minimize input costs, but the idea that you're paying a tax on something where you're not able to take advantage of the service provided is really is unfair in many respects. So the minister mentioned the issue of the $200 million for efficiency and cost, and we have a list here of what those programs are that the minister mentions, and so $30 million to new relationship for Indigenous food sovereignty, $20 million to IAF for food security, $20 million to IAF for flood mitigation, $20 million for food processors through IAF, $20 million for food affordability. I'm not quite sure where that money goes, targeted supply chain, I guess. $1 million for the city of Richmond, $49 million for social poverty or social development and poverty reduction, $20 million or give or take for food banks, $7.5 million for United Way. Out of that list, I don't see anything that flows directly to farmers to help them to reduce costs, to help them be more efficient. Which is honestly what we were led to believe what it was for. So perhaps the minister could help us understand where there's actually direct benefit to the farming sector.
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through the chair, government's vision for agriculture is focused on 4 central themes, which I touched on yesterday: increasing food security for British Columbians, making tangible progress on reconciliation, helping the sector adapt to climate change, and increasing the sector's ability to supply food products to British Columbians and to export markets. Our year-end spending was specifically tailored to support these themes. So, for example, our $15 million commercially viable replant program, our support for a $1 million tree fruit marketing strategy, and our investment of $20 million in improving irrigation systems will help hundreds of farmers improve their productivity. Our $20 million Fraser Valley flood mitigation plan and our $20 million emergency planning and preparedness program will help farmers adapt and prepare to weather climate events that are becoming far too frequent in British Columbia. And our $30 million Indigenous Food Sovereignty Fund will provide direct supports for First Nations farmers and communities who are seeking to strengthen their own domestic food supply. Together, these programs are providing real supports for farmers who are seeking to sustain and build their capacity to produce food for British Columbians.
One more question. Member.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, on supplementary estimates, we all know that the government, with a huge surplus, was dumping money out of the back of a truck before the end of this fiscal year. and $111 million, Madam Chair, went to agriculture and food. And when we asked questions that afternoon in supplemental estimates, no one with the ministry had an answer for us as to where that money was going to go and how it was going to get spent. But, Madam Chair, the next morning, we got a full listing of where the money was going to go, mostly going to be handled by programs with IAF.
No
My
problem.
question, Madam Chair, through you to the minister, if the minister didn't know where the money was going to go the night before, with the big announcement in Vancouver, why was IAF not even represented at that announcement if $111 million was going to IAF literally the next day?
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. IAF is a third-party administrator of funding. Farmers and processors will benefit from the funding, not the IAF. And I understand, Honourable Chair, that I must move the committee to rise and report progress and ask leave to sit again.
The question is that the committee rise, report progress, and ask leave to sit again. Those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, members. The committee stands adjourned.